Okay, so hopefully now everybody's got that. And I will pull up the slide again. I apologize for not having done that initially. So now I will turn it over to Zaira Suarez and David Liesma, who will introduce themselves and get started in the presentation.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zaira Suarez, architect, urban designer, and chair of the Committee on Architecture for Education of the North Virginia AIA chapter. The Committee on Architecture for Education, or CAE, is a forum that gathers a broad range of stakeholders, including designers, builders, learners, educators, administrators, and the public, interested in the design of educational environments. Through this platform, we hope to enhance knowledge around architecture, culture, well-being, and safety in our schools. We also learn from our region's many success stories, exchange innovative ideas, and share best practices in celebration of our collective commitment to creating the best school facilities. Today's event is part of the CAE Coalition, a union between the CAE committees for Washington, D.C., North Virginia, and Baltimore. Here to represent those chapters are architects and committee chairs Laura Smiles for Baltimore and David Liesma from Washington, D.C. And I'll pass this on to David.
Thank you, Zara. I'm David Liesma, one of the co-organizers and a member of the DC Architecture for Education Committee. We have a great panel of speakers for you tonight, all very experienced in working on CTE education projects. To start things off, I would like to introduce our moderator for tonight, who will be leading us through this discussion. Dawad Abdur-Rahman is a principal at DAR Project Management Consulting. He is currently supporting the development of a 5-year facilities plan for the Academy of Hope Adult Public Charter School in the District of DC, whose curriculum includes CTE pathways. He is also the grant project manager of the CTE Innovation Program grant in Alexandria, Virginia, where he served previously as a project director for the high school project. He is also the chair of the Charles County, Maryland Chamber of Commerce Business and Education Committee and represents the chamber on the Charles County Public Schools CTE Local Advisory Council. His career highlights include 35 years as a program and project executive at the U.S. General Service Administration, where he managed every aspect of federal and lease space delivery process and held the position as a director of planning in the Office of Planning and Design Quality. And if that wasn't enough, Dawad also supports schools and students through volunteering by participating in the ACE Mentor Program. So it's safe to say that Dawad is very well versed in every aspect of CTE education and is a great moderator for tonight. So with that being said, Dawad, I'll pass things off to you to get our panel session started.
Thank you, David, and I appreciate the honor and the privilege to moderate tonight's panel. Once again, my name is Dawood Abdur-Rahman, and we think we have a really nice lineup for you this evening. We have 3 great presenters tonight addressing the topic industry and academia, reimagining spaces for hands-on learning. Each of the presenters will give approximately a 15-minute presentation. There'll be about 20 minutes for a discussion, and then we'll have a closeout. The order of the presentations will be first, we'll have Derek Jeffrey. He's an AIA and a senior principal at Stantec Architecture in Arlington, Virginia. We have Allison Layton, who's an AIA as an associate with Quinn Evans and a leader of Quinn Evans Learning Environments practice. And we have Sherry Vincent, senior project manager and team leader, who's bringing over 25 years of construction management and experiences with Brailes and Dunslevy. Ms. Vincent also serves as a senior project manager in industry and academia. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our first presenter, Dirk Jeffrey.
Is my mic on? It is not. Wood, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Dirk.
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our call tonight. Thank you for joining, and thank you for your interest in our topic. Let me also wish everyone a happy CTE month. It's true, that is a thing, but who knew that February is also CTE month. So great timing. Kudos to the CAE team for bringing us all together tonight to celebrate CTE just before the window closes on the month. This first slide here is just meant to get us out of the gate with a bit of a qualification and to fess up, I guess, that even though we've worked on a number of CTE projects over the years, in our studio, we believe that there's still so much more to learn and to understand when it comes to CTE and how CTE is transforming public education and shaping and reshaping even the lives of many of our students. And with that, how do we appropriately design for this type of learning experience? And so tonight, what I have to share with you are just some of the lessons that we feel that we've learned over the years in our approach to a CTE project that we're currently designing in Arlington, which is the new Arlington Career Center. Next slide, please, Joe. One of the most interesting tidbits that we learned from a CTE educator many years ago is the idea of the more knowledgeable other, and the MKO, as it's called, is part of a theory that was put out there 100 years ago by a Russian psychologist named Lev Vygotsky. And Vygotsky believed that our capacity to learn more and to learn how to do more increases dramatically when we're in the company of MKOs, and that makes sense, right? So when you consider the current emphasis on collaborative learning, Vygotsky's idea doesn't really sound all that progressive, but if you fast forward from the early 20th century, it's easy to understand its application to CTE, where earning an industry certification or college credits while you're still in high school is really only possible if a bunch of MKOs are also in the house. And so takeaway number one maybe is the importance of having MKOs around to help us develop both our academic and technical skills. And these are the kind of skills that CTE courses afford access to. Next slide, please. Here's an image of the new Arlington Career Center. And while I'm on the slide, I'd just like to acknowledge the other MKOs who've helped us design the project, beginning with the client, Arlington Public Schools. And if you've had the opportunity to work with APS, then you know that they're great collaborators, they're very knowledgeable, they're real supporters of good design, and likewise right on down the line there. The last MKO I've listed is Diversified Educational Systems. And if you've worked with DES, then you know that they're experts in CTE planning. In our opinion, anyway, they provide critical assistance with the programming and the budgeting, the specifying, procuring, installing, much of that specialized equipment that's required by CTE programs. And so a second takeaway might be that if you have a project or you're pursuing one that involves CTE, then pick up the phone and give Mark Wyatt or Ray Lanham a call, and be sure to ask them about the VASCUP contract and how that might help your clients save lots of money. Next slide, please. By now, I suspect that we're all familiar with the features of quality CTE programs, but if not, then let me briefly say that high school CTE refers to the career-oriented programs that train students in the specific knowledge and skills required by a variety of industries. And so you'll find that CTE instructors are often industry licensed professionals with many years of experience in the private sector, and maintaining strong partnerships with businesses to advise on industry trends and curriculum, and to act as resources for job placement, and who provide work-based learning opportunities for students is key. Partnerships with post-secondary institutions are also important. As you know, community college has traditionally been the place where workforce training occurs. But today, community colleges and school divisions like Arlington County are working together to provide post-secondary opportunities for high schools through dual enrollment courses. And so what that means is while you're still in high school, you can enroll in a course that's taught by a college certified instructor. And because dual enrollment courses are offered for both core academic and CTE programs, many students today are graduating from high school with college credit, even an associate's degree. And how cool is that, right? That students can leave high school with such a profound advantage. And finally, CTE programs tend to focus on the workplace knowledge and skills that are most in demand by the current economy. So when CTE curriculum is aligned to industry standards, and when those courses are taught by either industry licensed professionals or college certified instructors, CTE students are then well prepared to take the exams required for licensure or apprenticeship in a particular industry while they're still in high school, which puts them way ahead of the competition in pursuing employment because they have already earned or in the process of earning an industry recognized credential. And helping students earn more of these IRCs is the focus of much of the education and CTE policy today. Next, please. What's also interesting to us is the question of why now, right? For example, when we know that technical education began in our schools way back in 1917, and for most of that time, technical education courses have tended to serve, if not segregate, honestly, a discrete population of our students. And fortunately, though, today things are very different. But why finally do you think that after all these years, that CTE has emerged from the fringe to become such a defining component of the education to employment continuum, right? What's changed? Could it be in part that we finally realize that success in high school and beyond is measured in more ways than test scores? And are good grades really a fair measure of academic readiness when you consider that 40% of college freshmen require some form of academic remediation? And it's about the same percentage of students who actually graduate from college after 4 years. So think about that, right? 60% of college-going students are not out of college after 4 years. It's taking them longer and costing them more to get a college degree. Next, please. And that delay in getting a degree is not good because it just contributes to the already enormous burden of student debt, which is currently estimated at $1.75 trillion. And delayed graduation from college then extends the transition to a good job, in turn delaying payback of those loans, buying a home, building wealth, investing for retirement, and things like that. And so maybe CT in high school is attractive because it provides a real head start on earning a college degree or earning an industry certification to get a good job that helps pay for college as you go, so that our students can eventually earn more sooner than later. Next, please. In terms of the economy and the workforce, employers still say that they can't find enough well-trained people to hire and fill the current skills gap in our country. Labor experts say that a healthy economy depends on a strong middle class, and that means more skilled workers. But as you know, the skills that are required by the job market continue to change. Employers also say that soft skills of communication and teamwork and problem solving remain just as important as possessing the right technical skills. Honestly, I don't know if any of these things really have influenced CTE trends or not, but I have seen that our school communities today are more diverse than ever. And many school divisions like Arlington County have embraced thinking beyond the binary, right? That's not just college or bust anymore, and are working with their business and higher ed partners to create conditions that prepare students very well for a variety of post-secondary options. Could you go to the next, just hit the button there, Joe, for a second. So there's the idea about the options and the pathways. And so takeaway number 3, perhaps I would offer, is a general, if not somewhat biased narrative that I've shared about what's happening around CTE programs today, which for us anyway is just as interesting as how to design a setting for this type of learning. Next, please. We talk about the Arlington Career Center. So Arlington, as you know, is just across the river from Washington, D.C. The project site currently occupies 3 buildings: the existing Arlington Career Center, the Montessori Public School of Arlington, and the Arlington Community High School. Next, please. All these buildings are 70s era structures. Here's the Arlington Career Center. And I should clarify that the new school will replace this one, which will then be renovated for the Montessori program. And then in turn, that building will be demolished. Despite its somewhat brutalistic character, inside the Arlington Career Center is an incredibly diverse, dynamic learning environment that's truly one of the most inspiring and inclusive places I've ever experienced. It's a very special and unique place, and I encourage everyone to find a reason to visit there, but you got to hurry because we're getting ready to replace it. Next, please. One more, there you go. When we began our work on the Career Center several years ago, by developing the ad spec for the project, and through the process, we learned that capturing what the ACC does instructionally is just as important as honoring who they are culturally and how they see themselves as a community of learners. Next, please. Today, the Career Center offers 30 or so different CTE courses, including animal sciences, which until very recently featured a miniature horse, 2 goats, and a yard full of chickens. And I'm not making that up, that's the truth. Sadly, the farm animals did not survive the pandemic. And so the animal sciences program in the new facility is shifting its focus to small animal care and vet sciences. Next, please. One more, there you go. The Arlington Career Center is home to a number of instructional programs, including serving as the division-wide center for CTE. So 3 times a day, the facility inhales and then exhales about 300 students each time from the other comprehensive high schools in the county. It's also home to Arlington Tech, which is a rather new and innovative high school program in Arlington. Arlington Tech is a STEM-focused and project-based program, not a high school, that combines rigorous academic work with hands-on CTE projects as part of the students' everyday experience. And how cool is that? In addition, there are 3 other all-day programs co-located at the Career Center that support English language learners, employment preparedness for disabled students, and credit recovery for students who perform better in smaller class settings. But the truth is that for all these programs and all these students, CTE courses are the place where individual paths intersect and where students with different strengths and interests work together. So you might say that CTE is the tie that binds the entire Career Center community. Next, please. This is an image from the ed spec that's meant to suggest how the building program areas listed there on the left might be grouped and thought of as a handful of unique space types, which could then be combined to suggest a sort of pixelated matrix, just as a way of thinking about how the building might be designed to reflect the client's desire for a truly integrated learning community. Next. Here's another image from the ed spec. This one suggests ways that various space types might be used to encourage creative use of the building areas. And we did this for all of the proposed space types in the program. One more. Next, please. Such as this one for a flexible performance space. And by the way, I believe the ed spec can be downloaded from the APS website if you're interested. Next, please. And since it was completed, the ed spec has formed the basis for a number of studies that have sought to optimize campus development. With land being so expensive in Arlington, no one wanted to miss an opportunity to do as much as possible on the site. Next. But it really did at times begin to get a little crazy. I mean, in terms of how much we tried to squeeze onto that site. Next, please, Joe. Until the school board found a new location for the Arlington Community High School, which then allowed that existing structure to be demolished, create some relief, and open up a linear parcel for the new building along South Walter Reed Drive. Next, please. And through a series of public meetings, the building form evolved from a simple 4-story slab into a step down and faceted structure. Next, please. Like this. And this is the concept that the school board approved to go forward into design. And so the south end of the building is 5 stories tall and steps down to 3 stories at the north end, where 2-story homes occur right across the street and wrap around the corner. And we've also incorporated a number of south and southeast facing terraces on the upper levels to support outdoor learning and community functions. Unfortunately, from a solar orientation standpoint, you might have noticed that the long axis of the building is running in exactly the wrong direction. But on the flip side, we do expect to have some really great views of the Washington Monument and into the city. So takeaway number 4, I think, could be the importance of working closely with your school community and committing to a vision for academic and technical learning, and staying open to the many ways in which the requirements of an ed spec can be translated through design in the community process. So in other words, let the client's vision be your guide. Next, please. Again, with the aspirations of the ed spec in mind, we developed a floor plan. Next. To spread as much joy as possible throughout the building in the form of CTE programs and breakout spaces. Next, please. And the next few slides just sort of take you on a quick tour of the building. Let's beginning on the first floor, where we place the auto tech and the auto collision labs right at the front door with large glass overhead doors so that every visitor every day can sneak a peek into these labs and even allow the cars to be driven out into the lobby. From the lobby, the first floor wiggles around the corner past engineering labs and the main dining area, past programs in construction and material fabrication, and early childhood and animal sciences at the north end. Or you could take that stair straight up to the second floor. Next, please. Where the library is located adjacent to a roof terrace, and the culinary arts program supports connections to nearby programs in sustainable agriculture, health occupations, physical therapy, and sports medicine and fitness to foster an overall focus on human wellness. Next, please. On the third floor are the 2 main assembly spaces, the gymnasium and the flexible performance space. And the next few slides are just meant to suggest some of the ways that the flexible performance space might be used throughout the day. Joe, maybe you can just punch right through those. Again, for a TED Talk or next, student exhibits, movies even. Next, please. But music, dance performances, poetry slams, you name it, really anything goes. You've all designed spaces like this and you know the type of activity that they support. Level, next one, Joe. There you go, level 4. So continuing just to step up the building again with the simple plan of integrated academic and technical space. The party is always anchored by a CTE program at the core. And on this level, it's the cosmetology and barbering program. And then the next one, please. And finally, level 5 that features an enclosed rooftop terrace for additional outdoor learning, along with the larger volume performing arts spaces. And then the next one, please. And I'll just leave you with one last takeaway, which is the idea of the creative user. And the idea of the creative user is something that we learned many years ago in a book called The Actions of Architecture by Jonathan Hill, who's a professor of architecture in London. And Hill makes the case that as architects, we often overlook or disregard the inherent creativity and ingenuity of those who use the buildings that we design. And intentionally or otherwise, we introduce elements into our projects that inherently limit how space is understood and used by the building occupants. And that's not what we want to do. Instead, the goal of design, at least in our opinion, especially for CTE projects, should be to foster the imagination of the user, to inspire them to appropriate space for their own purposes, and to interpret a space and give it meaning through creative use. And that's what we hope to accomplish at the Career Center on behalf of users like these. Next one, please. On behalf of users like Finn and Patrick and Andrea, all of who are fourth-year students at Arlington Tech, who are spending the year with us as part of their capstone experience. With that, the last slide, please, Joe. We're hopeful that we'll get the design right and that the building will serve its users well for many years into the future. But in truth, the jury is still out on that. So please stay tuned, and thanks again for your interest.
Sorry, I had it was on mute. Thanks, Dirk, for that great presentation. I just want to make a comment that you'll hear probably a trend is from all the presenters that we've noticed a historic decline in students enrolling in undergraduate programs, but these facilities and these schools and these curriculums are preparing for people who may be in the workforce earlier. And I want to encourage everybody during the presentations to use the Q&A function. We'll be pulling from those Q&A questions at the end of the presentations. I want to now pivot to Allison Layton, who I mentioned before is an AIA, LFA lead, AP, BD plus C as an associate with Quinn Evans and a leader in Quinn Evans Learning Environments and Practice. After receiving her bachelor's degree from the University of Virginia and her master's in architecture from Tulane University, Allison began her career serving as a construction crew leader for Habitat for Humanity through AmeriCorps. There, she learned the importance of hands-on experience and job skills, training and developing a foundation for her career. As a K-12 architect for the last 15 years, Allison applies her knowledge of construction and sustainable building to schools, searching for the intersection where teaching and pedagogies are supported by insightful design. So thank you. We're privileged to have Allison as our next presenter tonight.
Thank you, Dawood. All right. Yeah, I'm excited to be here tonight to talk to you about the ACE centers in Henrico County. I've been working with Henrico for the past couple years now on 2 ACE center projects that are ongoing together, the ACE centers at Hermitage and Highland Springs High Schools. Next. So the process with Henrico really started several years ago. Henrico's CTE leadership started to rethink the potential for CTE in the county as the rest of the Henrico County Public Schools were thinking about their high school redesign. So as they were thinking about the how CTE was built into that, trying to think about how this could be really opened up for more students, trying to offer more career opportunities, different career clusters and pathways, integrate with academics and curriculum in a more closely knit way, and provide skills for new opportunities and programs. Next slide. Part of that process was really engaging the community and business partners and the staff in conversations around the expansion of CTE. So one of the things that they started with was convening the Henrico County Public Schools CTE Business and Advisory Council, which helped bring the business perspective into CTE. And through that, the Business Advisory Council started looking at the businesses across the county and how to align the programs at the new ACE centers with those businesses to really improve synergies between programs and local businesses and provide options that might be complementary to students' interests. Next slide. So some of the initial visioning that we did with Henrico, we were looking at really increasing capacity for students. So the programs at the ACE centers have always been very popular in Henrico, and they have had more applicants for the programs than they've been able to take. So that was one thing that they really wanted to do was look at the capacity and make sure we were able to incorporate more students, providing flexibility for the future, integrating real world opportunities, and then developing those lifelong learning skills. Next slide. So as we came on, starting to look at the design side of the ACE centers, we were really focusing on some of these principles, trying to create spaces that modeled real world professional work environment. So we want these spaces to be spaces that students will work in the future, and so they can start to feel comfortable in those environments. Next slide. Another big goal was providing transparency and visibility between spaces. So we wanted the spaces at the ACE centers to really open up, and so the students, as they're going through the program, even if you have a class in one career pathway, you're seeing all the other opportunities that are available, and being able to put that learning on display for the students, but also for visitors and business partners that are also coming to the ACE centers. Next slide. Spaces that support the connections to the business community, providing those places where students and business partners can meet. Next. Flexibility was definitely key. A lot of the programs that are going into these ACE centers are programs that they don't even have right now. So trying to create spaces that will be flexible and agile as new programs develop in the future. Next. And of course, spaces that promote sustainability and student wellness, and providing those connections to the outdoors, natural daylight wherever possible. So I'm going to start here with the Highland Springs ACE Center. Next slide. So the Highland Springs ACE Center is on the east part of the county. It is at the site of the former, it's at the site of the Highland Springs High School, which currently has the ACE Center. So the larger footprint outlined in yellow here was the existing ACE Center, and we are looking at expanding it into that volume to the right there. So when Henrico built the new high school, and you can see kind of on the top right of this plan, they built it on an adjacent site. It freed up space from the former high school building. So this project actually utilizes the gymnasium from the old high school as part of that expansion. Next slide. So you can see here our main ACE building and our expanded building that are connected through this outdoor classroom space. Next. When we started, the program for each of these ACE centers is very unique, like I was mentioning before, based on location, based on the business industry. And so the Highland Springs is really adjacent. It's close to the airport. It's close to a lot of the transportation hubs for the county. And so locating the architectural, engineering, technology programs and some of the transportation programs in this area, the STEM, made a lot of sense, and trying to create programs where looking at adjacencies where those programs could connect and really create synergies between each other. Next slide. So this is a initial plan diagram of the building, and you can see here one of the big moves that we made was relocating the main entrance of the ACE Center. It used to be kind of tucked away in, if you remember, on the site plan in the center of the campus. But we really wanted to create this new face for the ACE Center. That is really another goal, is thinking about how we can change the perception of ACE in the county. because it is so important that that we are promoting the ACE programs in a different way and making sure that that the students and parents all know that the ACE, these programs that they're working on are just as important as any of the high school programs, and really changing that perception. So looking at, you'll see we'll have a rendering further on in the slides of the new facade that we've got here, but looking at incorporating collaboration areas into this plan as well. So you can see the circulation and the different zones. Next slide. Like I said, the STEM program is one of the major program areas for the Highland Springs ACE Center. And so you can see here, we've got sustainable energy, mechatronics, robotics, high-tech academy, global logistics, all arranged around this STEM innovation core. These are some of the programs I was mentioning before that they don't even have right now. So for instance, sustainable energy is going to be a brand new program. Robotics is going to be a brand new program. So designing these spaces, these are some of the ones we had to make the most flexible because we don't know exactly how they're going to be teaching those programs. So really just creating an infrastructure that will be super flexible for them, will provide the power and infrastructure needs that they might need for any variety of classes and programs. You can see here also we are connecting this to a new outdoor STEM lab to really enhance that outdoor connection and provide this outdoor learning space as well. Next. Right at the center of the Highland Springs ACE Center is this entrepreneurship space. So where right at the kind of heart of the building, we've peeled back the walls and created this space. You can go to the next slide. We've got a rendering of it that really allows an opportunity for the students to come together and a place for those meetings with the business partners. You can see here we've got a pitch platform for those presentations and just providing a space that all the different classes can come together to have those interactions with the business community. Next slide. And one of the most exciting parts about this project is the construction trades lab. So this is the area where we are utilizing the existing gym and really thinking about it differently in terms of all the construction programs that we are co-locating in here. So you can see we've got HVAC, masonry, carpentry, electricity, which are all going to be located in this open zone. We've tried to mitigate a little bit of the sound by enclosing some of the heaviest machinery in the center volume here, but we wanted to have an opportunity where the students got a little bit more access and experience in working side by side with the other trades, because we all know that they're going to be doing that on site when they are working in the field on these real jobs. And so the spaces, and you can go to the next slide, we've got a rendering of this space. It's very open. We've got these kind of flex classroom spaces around the machinery core, but the space is very open. So when the trades can all come together to do projects, build a tiny house, and there is space to spread out and work together. Next slide. And so here is the rendering of the new entrance, and you can see the existing building image there. The building we were starting with was a little bit sad. You can see those tiny window openings are basically all we got. And so we really are looking at, with the renovation, bringing more light into the spaces, creating better spaces that are going to enhance the student wellness and their experience, but also create a new facade and a new image for the ACE centers at Highland Springs. And now on the other side of the county, so we've been working on these two projects in tandem. The Hermitage ACE Center is located at Hermitage High School. They have always had part of the ACE program here, but I'm going to be talking about the new building that you can see on the site that's dashed in there. Go to the next slide. So you can see here the site plan of the new ACE building, which is immediately adjacent to the existing ACE wing that we also are doing some light renovation in, but the new ACE building is really where the focus of this work for Hermitage is. Next. So the Hermitage programs are very different than what we've got at Highland Springs. The programs here are really grouped around arts and communication and health science and human services. So again, thinking about how those programs can relate to the local businesses. You know, this area has some of the larger hospitals in the area and some of the medical professions that are located out there. So that was one of the thoughts about having the health services at this site. Next slide. So you can see here, this is the first floor plan of the new building. And this building is really centered around this forum space, which is going to provide an awesome opportunity to provide a space that all of these programs can really work out of. So if you notice the specific programs, specific career clusters that we've got here, we've got culinary, we've got pastry, hospitality and tourism, radio, video, communication, and graphics. So the thought here is that this will be an event space that the students will run. And so if there's a conference here, the culinary students and the pastry students are going to serve the meals for the conference. The hospitality and tourism students are going to organize the conference. The video production, radio are going to broadcast and record. Communications and graphics are really going to provide those marketing materials and that collateral to support the event. So this is going to be a really, really awesome way that these programs can work together in a more real world opportunity that they can provide and think about those synergies between the programs and how that they are going to have to work together, you know, in the real world when they are working on projects as well. Next slide. So you can see here the culinary kitchen and the pastry kitchen. These are large teaching labs. You know, we've got all state-of-the-art equipment to support the students and support these programs immediately adjacent to the forum. We also have large expanses of glass on here. So like I said, originally, you know, really trying to put these programs on display. So you'll be able to see right into these kitchens to see what the students are doing. Next slide. The graphics production lab. This is actually a major facility that does the graphics production work for the entire county, really. So the students, and that's something that they already have the graphics production lab in the existing ACE Center, but this will be expanding, giving them more space and more opportunity to create more for the community. Next slide. And then the forum space that I said, which is going to just provide this really flexible space to host all kinds of different events. Next. And you can see here a rendering of the forum space set up for conferences. And next, the forum space also set up for a career day event. One of the other really exciting things about this project is that we have left the entire second floor. So the building is being built as 2 stories, but the whole second floor is going to be left as shell space. So the plan in the future is for the second floor to become that health sciences hub. And so you can see all of the different career pathways that are planned to go in there. But the other piece of this is because it's left as shell space, the county wants to be able to let the students do some of the construction. So this is going to be a really amazing opportunity for the students who are in those construction trades programs that we just looked at Highland Springs to be able to get some commercial construction experience in a real world setting, working with contractors and working with the subs to be able to actually install this this program on the second level of this building. And you can see here our rendering of the exterior. Again, just trying to create a new face for the ACE centers to change that perception and really elevate the ACE programs across the county. Next. And then, so right now, both of these projects are actually in construction. You can see some recent construction photos here. So we are looking at both of these finishing towards the end of this year. So we'll keep you updated and excited to see what comes of both of these. Thank you.
So thank you, Allison. That was a very informative presentation, and thank you participants who are starting to make use of the Q&A function. Keep the questions coming. Now we're going to pivot and bring on Sherry Vincent, who I mentioned previously is bringing 25 years of construction management experience from Brailsford and Dunleavy. And she serves as a senior project manager in the firm's Washington, D.C. office and is engaged full-time in the management of the Prince George's County Blueprint Schools program, one of the first P3 alternative delivery method programs for K-12 schools in the country. Concurrently, Ms. Vincent is also assisting the District of Columbia Department of General Services to manage 2 government centers renovation projects. Prior to her career work, Ms. Vincent led the B&D team on the Baltimore City Public Schools 21st Century School Buildings program. Before joining B&D, she managed projects in the District of Columbia. She provided project management services for the creation and the construction of the Chuck Brown Memorial Park. Additionally, she served as a project manager for the modernization of a 66,000 square foot vacant wing of the McKinley High School into a STEM McKinley Middle School, which resulted in the middle school receiving a LEED Platinum designation. Ms. Vincent utilizes community outreach as an integral tool for her projects, a quality that aligns with B&D's program management services and mission to make its clients the strongest owners possible. So without further ado, we'll bring out Sherry to provide her presentation.
Thank you, Dawood. I appreciate it. And welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I've already learned a great deal from my co-panelists. There's so much diversity in the career and technical education field now. I've had the opportunity over the last maybe 10 to almost 15 years to bump into various CTE projects over time, and it's just amazing watching their evolution. So the first, I have 2 projects really quickly that I want to talk to you about, and both are in fact under the auspices of the Department of General Services in DC. But the first one is for sister agency OSSI, the Office of State Superintendent of Education, and they have, in collaboration with the Deputy Mayor's office, the DME, the Deputy Mayor of Education, have put together a program that's called the Advanced Technical Center, and it is at Penn Center. So next slide. These are the project team members, the architects, the contractor, and the Department of General Services and Brailsford and Dunleavy. Next slide. And so we did not have the opportunity, unfortunately, with either of these projects that I'm going to tell you about to build new buildings from the ground up. So there are some budget capacity issues, and so we wanted to make sure we put as much of the budget into the actual programs. So we went out looking for suitable buildings, and one that we were able to identify for OSSI for the Advanced Technical Center was the old National Geographic Society building, also known as Penn Center, and that is in Northeast DC. Next slide. you can see as an aerial shot there, approximately where this is located. And the building has had many different uses over the years. The most recent, it was a swing space for the department, not the department, I'm sorry, for the DC Public Library while they were having their space at MLK renovated. So as they're moving out of the building now, it gives Aussie an opportunity to begin taking over the building. And we're going to do that on the second floor first. Next slide. That's just another view of the exterior of the building. It's just a wonderful visual on that side of the building. Next slide. So on the second floor, it's not a very big space, about 20,000 square feet. When you come off the elevator lobby, which is sort of the upper left side of your screen there, you come into an area that is, we'll call it an intake area, right? There are places for students to wait, to have one-on-one conversations with instructors to talk about the program they might want to enroll there, or perhaps what additional opportunities there'll be for them during the academic year. It's open to high school students across the district. It doesn't matter what high school they go to in the district, they can apply to come to this facility as part of their regular education. So they'll have their home school and then their home high school that they would go on a regular basis, but then they would also be able to come here for as many classes a week as they would work out with their professor. So as you turn and go back just for a moment. So the center part of this floor is devoted to the health sciences. That is one of the two programs. And then to the extreme right is the cybersecurity program. And the way that this works, they have university professors who are coming in to teach these classes in both the health sciences and the cybersecurity portion. And just as my fellow presenters have mentioned, it's an opportunity to learn university credits, also to get actual certifications while they're still in high school. So once they leave high school, they have opportunities to go directly into some work, some jobs in the industry that they're interested in while they're either attending university or just getting on the job training. Next slide. So coming in, it's an intake area, it's welcoming, it's inviting. And you'll see to the right, next slide, you'll be able to access an area to interact with other students who are coming there, maybe take a moment to sit down and have something to eat while you're waiting. And then next slide. There's a larger area for a sort of a major class. If they wanted to get all of the students together at one time, they could have a larger instructional opportunity here. And if you see off to the left, you'll see a green wall, right? So next slide, and you can actually skip this one because we'll come back to it. That green, that corridor is kind of giving you the signal that you're entering the health sciences area. And again, the idea of transparency, being able to see into the spaces as you're walking down the hall. This is very similar to what you would see in a hospital setting. Acrovan type bumpers, both for wheelchairs and for gurneys. And then as you go, next slide. And as you go into the space, you'll see that there are large plate glass windows. You can see into they will have an actual emergency room bay, and then also a doctor's exam office and different simulated areas. And in this case, in the emergency room bay, the university professor can sit outside with a microphone, and the students will be working on what we call high fidelity mannequins. They have a range of mannequins, nothing like what you remember as Resusci Annie when you took your first aid class. These are these high fidelity mannequins actually have a pulse. their pupils dilate, their voice can come, the voice that the professor can answer questions that the students ask. The students are taught how to assess a patient, to take all the vital signs using real equipment on a hospital bed, an actual hospital bed, with these high fidelity mannequins. And they can be videotaped, they can be timed. It's all part of their assessment, and for the class, what they're actually learning in the space. And then there are instructional spaces where they'll learn how to do phlebotomy, how to test bodily fluids, how to do all of the things they will see when they actually, if they enter the healthcare profession, either in private practice or in hospital settings. Then again, instructional space, again, just a variety. I think key word we've been using has been the flexibility of the space. Next slide. So then as you walk down the hallway, you're heading toward the cybersecurity space. And I'll just mention that one of the other things that we try to do is to celebrate the local neighborhoods that our facilities are in. So again, and also acknowledge the history of the building. These adaptive reuse projects are near and dear to my heart. I hate to see a good building with great bones sit idle and be underutilized. So these are really wonderful opportunities to make use of these spaces. Next slide. And again, in the cybersecurity area, they'll have the large open front or glass case front structures that will hold all of the computer equipment that they will actually be able to work on. And they'll have two different platforms, I should say, in this cybersecurity area. One, of course, will be linked to Octo, the office of, well, you know what Octo is if you've ever worked with them in DC, but the office of the Chief Technology Office. And they provide all the internet and IT services to government buildings, to DC buildings. And so here they will have the opportunity to be linked to that platform, but there is a second platform, one that is siloed, that is not connected to the internet, not connected to Octo, where the instructors can release viruses, malware into the system that students then have to track down and neutralize. So it's a safe way to learn how to hack without damaging any public system, but again, in a very high-tech field, one that's fast growing and has tremendous demand. Next slide. And again, some precedent images just showing the kind of work that they may be able to do in these spaces, either sitting at the laptop, having instruction from the instructor there, or being able to work directly on the equipment that is provided in the space. Next slide. And the second program, again, is for a sister agency of the Department of General Services, and that is the Department of Employment Services. And so DOES about 2018, 2017 started the DC Infrastructure Academy. And again, this academy was meant for adult learners. So this is not high school here. This is 18 years of age and older with either a high school diploma or a GED. But their partners are all the major utility companies in the district. So Pepco, Washington Gas, DC Water, DC Solar Works, and all of these utilities provide instructors to the DC Infrastructure Academy. They are in a temporary location now, which is where they've been since 2018, and that's Wilkinson Elementary School building. They will be moving out of that. And next slide. The team that's assembled here, the architects and a construction management firm for DGS, and the associated sub-consultants, next slide, will take this building, which is the Spingarn High School building in Northeast DC, which unfortunately has sat vacant since 2013. So as you can imagine, for that number of years, it has suffered greatly, but it is a tremendous building, 225,000 square feet, tremendous, but also just a wonderful historic structure that we would like to restore to some of its former grandeur. Next slide. You can see from the aerial shot that there are two integral courtyards within the building, and then the perimeter is largely classrooms. The center portion between the two courtyards is the original auditorium, and then the structure that juts out to the west side is actually the gym. Now, initially, DCIA will only take about 50,000 square feet of this building, all in the northern section of the building, and that is at the top of your screen. And then to the left, to the western side of the building, is that large open grassy green area. And there will be an outdoor simulation area where the major utilities will have the opportunity to have structures that students can work on, and that they will bring in, bucket trucks and backhoes and the things that students will actually be operating when they've received their certificates and have been hired out into these various utility companies. Next slide. So just an idea, that's the end of the building. You can see how much more of the building there will be. We'll stabilize the rest of the building, and as time goes on, DCIA hopes to be able to take additional space in the building, and then there might be opportunities for other different kinds of activities or features that the community would like to have in the building as well. Next slide. Again, just talking about how we're trying to separate quiet from noisy activities and clean from dirty. So we'll talk about that a little bit further. Next slide. So again, the new entrance will be ADA accessible off of 26th Street, placing the windows, eventually all of them, cleaning up the exterior, again, bringing this building back to life. Next slide. And on the northeast corner of the building, in front of the smokestack, currently there is a boiler room there. But that boiler room, we will raise the roof. We will actually incorporate an auto lab there with lifts for both a bus and two smaller vehicles, because one of the things that they will also learn to do is work on the DC buses. And if you see to the right there, you'll see the kind of a window into the simulation area that will be fenced in, of course, because it to keep everyone safe. But also it's very accessible to the building, so they'll be back and forth between the exterior simulation area and instructional use inside the building. Next slide. So again, on the left, a precedent image of the, an interior auto lab, not the one that we have. This one was in Wheaton at a large CTE high school. And then to the right, if you could trigger.
The actual ground that everybody uses when they actually have to do field work. So share it with Pepco, Washington Gas, DC Water, and then Solar Works is also able to use that as well. They actually have a big.
So that's a little clip of their current work yard. And again, you can see the Pepco line poles. If you're going to learn to be a Pepco lineman, you need to be able to work with the poles. You need to be able to work with the equipment that's on the poles. Also, DC Water and Washington Gas have features that are underground in the simulation yard. And so all of this is very much hands-on, exactly what they will see in the industry once they graduate from their program at DCIA. Next slide. And again, coming into the building off of 26th Street, a little area where there'll be a gallery, again, anchoring it to the community, speaking about the history of this building, what it has now will become with DCIAs taking up residence. You'll see the multi-purpose area and the area where they have what we call intake. They will have small offices to meet with instructors, to talk about the program that they might want to become part of, little testing area, and then the labs as you go around the courtyard. There's also a fitness room because this is a pretty strenuous line of work, and so they'll have the opportunity to also work out in a fitness room while they are on site, to get ready for that aspect of the work as well. Locker rooms with some showers and so forth. Next slide. Again, this is coming in the gallery. We'll have the opportunity to display what as I just mentioned, and kind of bringing in elements of the work that they will be doing, a little more polished concrete floors, hard surfaces. Next slide. Just giving a kind of a sense of what they're going to be entering. And one more slide. Just bringing out these fun elements that really speak to the industry that they're going to be learning about. And next slide. And again, then this is the ground floor plan, as we just spoke about, and that comes in off of 26th Street. They will take this end of the building on this floor, and then the next floor is, I'm sorry, this is just an image of just the intake area. Again, just kind of welcoming area for them. And then on the second level, or sorry, it's actually the first level, it's lower level, first, second, and third. So the first level, there's a student lounge, more administrative area, flex classrooms. Again, there will be programs, no doubt, that will come along after they have taken up residence at Spingarn. So they have to be ready for those new programs that they want to bring on board later. And you can see then the direct access to the auto bay in that upper right-hand corner. So back and forth to that, very easy to come back and forth to the building. Next slide. And then on the second floor, again, more flex classrooms, more labs, and plenty of room for expansion in the future. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about, again, as I mentioned, hard surfaces, polished concrete floors, just giving a sense of a little bit different than what we saw at Penn Center for the Advanced Technology or Technical Center. And next slide. And again, in the courtyard, we have just another word about the multi-purpose space that you see there in blue. They have actual graduations frequently of these cohorts that come through the different utility companies' classes. And so those courtyards, in this particular multi-purpose space can open out into the courtyard. And next slide. And that courtyard then is a visible window from all sides of what can go on, sort of an additional simulation area, if you will. Next slide. So it's divided up into a social side and a work side. So the social side is an opportunity to collaborate with other students, take a break, sit outside. Again, being in the outdoors is lovely, and these are great courtyards. And then on the other side is a work area. So next slide. On the work side, there is an overhang so that, and they'll be using small tools out in this area. They'll be able to continue the classes even in inclement weather. There's a digging area, an area to set up to understand how to use your PPE, your personal protective equipment. And then, what they have to learn how to secure a site before they can actually work on it. And at the back, you can see a little structure popping up with a ladder. If you take the next slide and a look at it from the other direction, that's an opportunity for SolarWorks to teach students how to carry the voltaic panels up the ladder and set them on the roof. And then an outdoor learning space as well on this end of the courtyard. And just to say a couple of words about, again, the partnerships that are formed, the partnerships at ATC are ones with the university professors to allow the students to come away with the certifications and the additional credits. Here it's with the major utilities to actually, again, get this hands-on experience, be ready to go out into their chosen line of work as soon as they've as soon as they've left their classes here at DCIA. And then I think that's pretty much it. That's the lovely view of the courtyard. And we're done. Thank you so much. Back to you, Dawood.
Thank you, Sherry. And I think we're going to open it up for questions now, and I'll ask the panelists to turn on their cameras so that you can be seen. Thank you all who started to put in some questions. Before I get to one of the questions, I want to start with just one of the first overarching. I'd like to just from the beginning start with just requirements development. It's clear that CTE is not your, it's not the vocational school that we should think of, at least when I was in high school a long time ago. It's not just the shops, but what is it? Is CTE a trade school? Is it a STEM program? There's clearly collaboration with community colleges. It seems like the school systems are trying to provide an opportunity through these curriculums and of course through the designs to provide a lot of pathways for their students. How is this affecting the requirements development process? How is this affecting the ed specs with the types of spaces? Could you guys kind of talk a little bit more about that, just in terms of the requirements development process with the various needs that are needed with the CTE programs being the trade, STEM, community college coordination? What impact are you seeing on the development of the educational specifications?
I can take a swing at that.
Go ahead, Dirk.
If you like. Well, I thought Allison's presentation did a nice job. I mean, and I know Allison, the director of CTE, I've met him down there, a very impressive guy. But a lot of times, the director of career education in the district has a very strong handle on what programs that they're offering. They wish to offer. They track the data on the enrollment in these various career programs. And some of those programs change depending on what the labor market requires, right? So they're changing these programs and offering new programs. They're revising the curriculum and some of the existing programs. I mentioned the animal sciences, for example. But the difference, one of the things that we found lately, and it's true for Arlington Tech, they are integrating core academic work with the career tech. And that's different. So if it's a CTE facility of the sort that Allison is working on, that's one ed spec. And another ed spec would be when you have core academic space, which would allow students to stay in the building and reduce their travel, right? And so you would have more core academic time in the building to couple with your CTE credits. And so that's what's happening at the Arlington Tech. And so it's very different facilities if they're integrated with core academic and if they're standalone CTE centers.
Yeah,
Allison, did you want to add into that? Go ahead.
I think that's a good point, Dirk, because the Henrico project specifically, the model for those is that all the students have a home school that they are based at. So, and one thing I didn't mention is that, the programs in Henrico specifically are open to students across the county. So you don't just have to go to the ACE center that's in your location. You could go to the one across the county. But every student has a home school that they're taking their kind of core curriculum classes at for Henrico specifically. And then you're coming to the ACE center a couple days a week to do your ACE curriculum work. So it is interesting to hear, though, that some of the some of the other ACE programs are really incorporating that core curriculum into the building and so it's cool that the students could then be in the building all day and take all of their courses at once, which I think does, add an element of what's the word? Kind of leveling the playing field and creating a little more opportunity for students who, might come from this at different directions to be able to incorporate their core classes and the ACE curriculum at the same time.
Sure. Did you want to add to that? I have a follow-on question, but did you want to add anything to that particular topic? You're still on mic. You're still on mute. I mean, sorry.
Apologies. No, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Ask your follow-up.
It's a follow-on, and maybe all the other panels can add on to this as well. There was a question in the chat, the kind of variation of the same theme with all the transparency desired and shown in some photos and rendering. I think this question came up actually when Allison was presenting. How do each of the speakers balance transparency and security for times of lockdown for the building? And then a follow-on question was generally, were there concerns with security and visibility? And I think that's another requirements development with all the collaboration and sharing and transparency. Were you all seeing additional challenges with balancing the need for transparency, but also being mindful of security? And maybe maybe Sherry, you might want to start with that one, and we can go to
Sure.
Allison. Yeah.
So ours is has a little bit of a unique aspect, but the buildings inside, the transparency for us, for ATC and for DCIA, is very much within the space. For the most part, at ATC, we have a secure vestibule. They, are going to be met in the lobby, and then they will be allowed to go up to the second floor. And then the transparency really is as you move around the space, within the space, for all the students to be able to see what's happening in each of the classrooms and how students are being tested and what they're working on. At DCIA, it was a traditional high school. And so we don't have, again, tremendous openness from the exterior. And then of course we do have the simulation area. Again, that will it will be secured with the height of the fence, unfortunately we have to do this, but also the, cameras and lights at night and so forth. But we want to be good neighbors. We also abut a neighborhood of 3 apartment buildings. And they are in the process of also heightening their own security. And so, but we feel like that together, and we have had conversations with them about how can we do this collaboratively. And so we are hopeful that will be possible. But I think it's probably a little different in some of the newer buildings that are being built. So back to the other panelists.
Thank you. Yeah, Allison, can you kind of pick up on that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a huge concern for the clients we work with, and not just for the ACE centers, for all of our learning environments projects, but specifically for the ACE centers, since, as I said, one of our goals was really that transparency, putting learning on display. One of the very specific ways that we addressed that was to actually provide interior roller shades on all the interior rooms, so that in a situation those could be closed down. So the intent is that they, the classes, the instructors will leave them open during the day, but they have that added level of security if they need to close down and have those situations. So that's one way we have addressed it. At Hermitage, some people might have noticed in the rendering of the forum, we actually had a very large curtain wall looking out the back that looked out onto kind of a wooded area. It was all clear glazing. That was something that was of concern to the client. And so we actually, the lower portion of that glazing, we changed to translucent glazing. And so you still get the light and the view from the upper level of glazing, but you get that little added element of security and that feeling of safety and protection right at that at the level of the floor.
Dirk, anything you want to add to this challenge of transparency and security?
It's always a challenge. So like Allison said, it's not specific to CTE buildings at all. But I will say that, I mean, there's at least two schools of thought on that, right? And some people actually believe that more transparency is actually better. And going back to septet and defensible space and so forth like that, people believe that if you can see trouble coming, then you have more time to respond to it. And I think, I'll speak specific to our client, Arlington, and Arlington has developed some protocols and some facility standards where they have just slab doors. They don't have windows in their doors, for example, but they have a full height side light, and they do have what Allison just said. They have like a little draw curtain that closes it off. Is that enough? I don't know, but it's always a matter of what experience do you want to have and provide for your students every day versus protecting yourself from the unlikely event of a tragedy in an active shooter situation. The other side of the national surveillance thing, though, is access control. So, right, limiting access into the building and around the building is the other side of that. So it's always a balance, and everybody comes down somewhere differently along that spectrum, is our experience.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we're halfway through the Q&A session here, and I would be remiss if I didn't get a budget question in. I just can't help myself. So let me just I'll go around and kind of ask the question. Maybe we'll start with Sherry and go around again and say, are you seeing the focus on these schools that need to accommodate these very CTE programs having a significant impact on what would have normally been adequate for the design and construction of the school facilities? What's been the impact on construction costs related to the CTE programs, or has it not been an impact? It's, I'm just curious, and I want to ask the budget question.
Right. So again, we're using existing buildings. So sometimes the cost factor is stabilizing the building itself, right? Mm-hmm. And particularly if you're not taking the entire building initially. But I think, yeah, we found that at least in the where we were using extremely high-tech equipment, that the budget there was significantly higher than may have been factored into the original budget. But again, it's something that is now the state of the art, and it allows them to have that training that they wouldn't get otherwise. So there are some other areas that we've scaled back just so that we can do that.
Allison, could you talk a little bit about your experience in terms of if there's a relationship between accommodating these programs and budgets that you might have seen in the past?
Yeah, I think Sherry's right that it comes down to the equipment that's in these spaces. I think, the base buildings that we're designing are not that much different than in terms of budget than other learning environments that we're doing. But it is that equipment cost that can be a large add-on. So, for some of the projects I've worked on, that equipment is coming from a different budget from the client. So that can help because then the client can also pursue different avenues to acquire those funds, like, looking for grants or looking for other opportunities to acquire the equipment, so it doesn't have to come directly out of the construction budget is one way that our clients approach that.
Dirk?
I would say that the building facility cost is no more or no less. There are some premiums associated with it. In our case, a lot of these CTE labs require 100% outside air, 100% ventilation. So you're just throwing it all outside. You're not recovering any of it. And so there's a great deal of mechanical ventilation. And so lots of costs associated with HVAC, for example. There is also, I think, some potential premium for acoustic control. A lot of these labs make a lot of noise. In our case, we have programs on top of programs instead of side by side. And so sound transmission through the slab is a big concern of ours. And so we actually went to a concrete building and for a couple of reasons. One was the uncertainty and availability of steel when we were designing this thing. One is acoustic isolation and control of the programs that are generating the noise. And so there is a premium for concrete. And the third is that there is multi-story concrete buildings in our area are pretty common. And so there's a good labor market available for concrete buildings. But there is a premium to it. There is a premium associated with it. And then finally, I think it's the CTE, FF&E. There's a great deal of specialized equipment required for some of these programs. And that is a cost that the owner will have to bear. That is unique to this project type.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I got the budget question in. As a project manager, I would probably feel some kind of way tonight if I didn't get this, at least have that discussion on the record and in the discussion. And we're coming to the end of the of our presentation. So I just think I want to kind of pivot to a summary and a wrap up. And I've actually forgotten who's going to do the kind of the final wrap up. David, there you go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dawood.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, our time has come to a close tonight, but I'd like to really thank all of our three panelists, Derek, Allison, and Sherry, for giving us some of their time and sharing their knowledge of CTE spaces and education. I know I certainly learned a lot, and I think it was a very great discussion we had tonight. Also, Dawood, thank you very much for both moderating and sharing your own experiences for these very specific types of buildings. Thank you all for a great discussion. So as we mentioned before, this event has been a collaboration between 3 different committees on architecture and education from the Northern Virginia chapter, the DC chapter, and Baltimore chapter of the AAA. And each chapter has numerous events planned for the future. So if you really enjoyed this presentation, make sure to check the calendar for each chapter and kind of see what coming events we have. We have a lot of great lectures, tours, more panel discussions in the future that we would love to have you come join us for. And if you need more information about the committee or the speakers tonight, we'll be sending out a handout about the event, just kind of giving a summary of the event tonight, as well as links to each different committee, so you can kind of keep up with all of our events coming up. Also, thank you for joining us tonight. I really hope to see you at any future events.